Ethan never expected his life to fall apart on the same day he inherited his mother's house. He walked through the quiet hallway, still smelling faintly of her perfume, unaware that this peaceful home would soon become the center of betrayal. While he was grieving, Madison was already planting the first seeds of disaster. She kept insisting he sell the house, claiming the money would fund her dream wellness brand, something she said would change their future forever. But Ethan refused, wanting to protect the only thing he had left from his mother. That single decision, simple, emotional, and honest, was the spark that lit the fuse. And from that moment on, the woman he trusted the most began weaving a plan that would push their marriage and Ethan's sanity to the very edge. Madison's obsession with becoming an entrepreneur didn't appear overnight. It started quietly, with harmless videos about manifesting success and building $1 million brand from scratch. But soon she was spending entire nights glued to her laptop, drowning in webinars that promised fame, freedom, and fast money. She began quoting gurus at breakfast, talking nonstop about energy alignment, personal branding, and how she was destined for more than an ordinary life. Ethan brushed it off at first, thinking it was a phase, something she would outgrow once the excitement faded. But instead, it grew stronger. Madison quit her stable job without warning, announcing it like a victory. She told Ethan she needed capital, exactly $150,000, to launch her wellness empire, complete with a sleek logo, a team of consultants, and a rented studio decorated with crystals. Ethan was stunned. He had just lost his mother, they were still paying off loans, and he couldn't understand why Madison was pushing so hard, so suddenly. When he calmly explained that they simply couldn't afford such a massive investment, Madison's expression changed. The confidence drained from her face, replaced by frustration, then disappointment, and finally a coldness Ethan had never seen before. She accused him of not supporting her dreams, of fearing her success, and of being emotionally small. The words hit Ethan harder than she realized. Still, he tried to talk things out, tried to be patient, tried to make her see reality. Madison pretended to soften. She apologized, cooked dinner, hugged him, and said she understood. But beneath those gestures, something darker was taking root. Madison couldn't accept the idea of giving up her fantasy. She couldn't accept the word no. And most of all, she couldn't accept that Ethan held the key to the money she desperately wanted. In her mind, the solution became disturbingly simple. If Ethan wouldn't fund her dream, she would find another way to get the money herself. The house his mother left behind, the quiet, modest home filled with memories, slowly turned into a symbol of opportunity in her eyes. Not a sanctuary, not a legacy, but a financial asset waiting to be cashed out. Madison began researching real estate listings late at night, clearing her browsing history each morning. She collected names of agents, studied the selling price of similar houses, and learned how fast a closing could be pushed through if the seller was motivated. She even practiced Ethan's signature in a notebook she hid behind her stack of business journals. During the day, she acted warm, supportive, even affectionate, asking Ethan about his work, cooking his favorite meals, and talking lovingly about their future. But every smile she gave him was calculated. Every soft word was a distraction. Every hug was a cover for the storm she was preparing. Madison wasn't trying to build a business anymore. She was preparing to steal one. It happened on a Tuesday morning when Ethan's phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Parker, the elderly neighbor who had lived next door since he was a child. Her text was short but terrifying. She said a moving truck had shown up in front of his mother's house, and a real estate agent was walking buyers through the property. Ethan froze. He hadn't scheduled any showing. He hadn't spoken to any agent. His chest tightened as he rushed to the house, heart thundering with every step. When he arrived, a stranger in a suit was walking down the path with a cheerful smile, explaining to a couple how the seller is eager to close quickly. Ethan demanded answers. The agent, confused, held up a clipboard and said everything had already been signed. "Your wife handled all the paperwork," he said casually, as if that explained everything. Ethan felt the world tilt. He had never given Madison permission to do anything with the house. He hadn't signed a single document. He asked to see the contract, and when the papers were handed to him, he stared at his own forged signature, crooked, unsteady, but close enough that someone unfamiliar might believe it. The realization hit him like a punch. Madison had gone behind his back. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But something else didn't add up. The sale was moving too fast. The price was high, the buyers were ready, and the agent seemed convinced everything was legal. Ethan left the house and drove straight to meet with Mr. Thompson, the lawyer who had handled his mother's estate. When Thompson examined the documents, his eyebrows lifted in disbelief. He explained that the house wasn't legally Ethan's to sell, not in the traditional sense. Years ago, Ethan's mother had placed the property into an irrevocable trust, with Thompson as the trustee. This meant Ethan could live in the house, maintain it, and inherit its value one day, but he had no authority to sell it. And Madison had absolutely zero rights over it. Every signature she had provided, every form she had filed, every conversation she had with the real estate agent, all of it was completely invalid. Not just invalid, illegal. Ethan sat in stunned silence as Thompson laid out the implications. Madison had committed fraud. She had impersonated him. And she had attempted to sell property she didn't own. Thompson assured him they could stop the sale immediately, but he warned Ethan that Madison's actions had consequences far beyond a canceled closing. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a desperate mistake. It was a calculated attempt to gain money she had no right to. On the drive home, Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He had known something was wrong between them, but he never imagined she would cross into criminal territory. And yet, one thing was painfully clear now. Madison hadn't just betrayed his trust. She had triggered a legal avalanche that was only beginning to fall. Ethan and Mr. Thompson began their work quietly, determined to build a solid case before confronting Madison. The first step was verifying the forged signature, and Thompson wasted no time sending the documents to a handwriting analyst. Within days, the expert confirmed what Ethan already knew in his gut: the signature wasn't his. It mimicked his strokes, but the pressure, angles, and packing were all wrong. Next came the metadata. Thompson retrieved the digital files Madison had used in the transaction, pulling timestamps that showed the documents were created on Madison's laptop late at night, long after Ethan had gone to bed. Every new detail tightened the noose. The notary's testimony was the final blow. When contacted, the notary admitted Madison told him Ethan was traveling for work and couldn't sign in person, so she had brought the documents on his behalf. He confessed he never actually saw Ethan, a direct violation of procedure. Ethan felt sick hearing it. His wife had lied to everyone with a straight face, using his name as if it were a tool she owned. While evidence piled up, Madison's behavior at home spiraled further out of control. She began spending money faster than ever, buying designer clothes, spa packages, and expensive coaching sessions, all under the delusion that her wellness empire was about to explode into success. She talked endlessly about the big change coming to their lives, hinting at financial freedom she believed was just around the corner. Ethan watched her, wondering how she could act so normal while standing on the edge of disaster. It wasn't just the spending. Her lies grew bolder. She told Ethan's sister that he had agreed to sell the house months ago. She told her own parents that Ethan was holding her back and refusing to support her dreams. She told friends that Ethan was the one who didn't communicate, painting herself as the patient, suffering wife. The more she talked, the more her stories contradicted each other. Her world was becoming a maze of fiction she could no longer control. Then came the most shocking lie of all. One evening, after Ethan confronted her about their mounting expenses, Madison burst into tears and claimed she was pregnant. She said the stress was affecting her health and begged him not to destroy their family. Ethan felt a jolt of panic and hope all at once, but something felt wrong. Her timing, her tone, her sudden reversal from anger to vulnerability. Later that week, Ethan found a receipt in her purse, a recent purchase of tampons, and the truth shattered whatever sympathy he had tried to hold on to. She wasn't pregnant. She had weaponized motherhood as a tool to manipulate him. The discovery broke something deep inside him. Not just trust, not just love, but the belief that Madison still shared even the smallest sliver of honesty with him. Meanwhile, Thompson finished assembling the case, a thick stack of evidence detailing every false signature, every fabricated statement, every digital breadcrumb that led back to Madison. All that remained was timing. The legal team and investigators agreed to wait until the day of the closing, ensuring Madison would incriminate herself fully. Ethan didn't sleep the night before. He lay awake, knowing the woman next to him wasn't the partner he married, but a stranger wearing his wife's face. Madison woke up on the morning of the supposed closing day, believing her entire life was about to change. She hummed to herself as she brewed coffee, scrolling through Pinterest boards filled with luxury apartments, branding studios, and beach vacations she planned to take once the money came in. She didn't notice Ethan watching her from the hallway, studying every movement with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. He already knew that by the end of the day, everything she had built on lies would collapse. But he said nothing. He let her move through the house with forced confidence, talking excitedly about how success always comes to those who manifest it hard enough. Madison headed to the spa first. She spent hours getting her nails done, her hair styled, and her makeup perfected, telling the esthetician that she needed to look like the face of a future CEO. She even joked about making her husband eat his words when he realized she had been right all along. While she was wrapped in warm towels and essential oils, Ethan sat in Mr. Thompson's office across town, reviewing the final lineup. 2 investigators from the police department were ready. Thompson had the trust documents, the forged signatures, and the metadata files organized into a single folder. The notary had agreed to testify. Everyone was prepared. They would wait for Madison to walk into the closing room, present herself as the seller, and verbally confirm the sale she had no legal right to make. That single statement would trigger everything. Meanwhile, Madison stopped by a boutique and bought a white blazer, saying it symbolized new beginnings. She spent money she didn't have with the confidence of someone who believed the universe owed her a reward. As she drove to the title office, she blasted motivational music, practicing the poised, businesslike smile she wanted to wear when the wire transfer hit her account. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend, and Madison proudly texted back, "After today, I won't have to worry about anything again." When she finally arrived at the closing office, she walked in with the energy of someone stepping onto a red carpet. Her heels clicked sharply across the floor, her new blazer glowing under the fluorescent lights. She didn't notice the officers sitting quietly in the corner. She didn't notice the tension in the room. She didn't notice Ethan sitting beside Thompson, his expression unreadable. Instead, she greeted everyone with bright confidence, announcing that she was ready to finalize the deal. Thompson kept his voice calm as he opened the file on the table. He asked her a few procedural questions, giving her every opportunity to confirm her involvement. Madison answered eagerly, explaining how she had handled everything on behalf of her husband. With each sentence, she dug herself deeper. She didn't know she was walking straight into the trap. She didn't know every eye in the room was waiting for the exact moment she incriminated herself. She didn't know that in just a few minutes, everything she believed she deserved Money, status, victory would turn to dust. Madison settled into her chair with a confidence so bright it was almost blinding. She crossed her legs, straightened her new white blazer, and flashed a smile at the buyers as if she were the rightful owner of everything in the room. The title agent began reviewing the documents, unaware of the storm about to break. Ethan sat across from her, hands clasped tightly, trying to steady his breathing. He watched Madison perform, every gesture polished, every word dripping with rehearsed professionalism. She had no idea she was seconds away from losing everything. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and gently tapped on the folder in front of him. "Before we begin," he said calmly, "we need to verify the seller's legal authority to transfer ownership of the property." Madison waved her hand dismissively. "I already handled all of that," she said. "The house is under my husband's name, and I signed for him because he's been so busy." Those words were the final lock clicking shut around her. Thompson opened the folder and slid out the trust documents, placing them neatly in the center of the table. "Actually," he said, "the property belongs to an irrevocable trust. And the only person with the authority to make decisions about it is me." The smile froze on Madison's face. She blinked, confused, then laughed nervously as if this were some sort of legal misunderstanding. But Thompson continued, his voice steady. "You had no right to list the property. You had no right to sign any documents. And every signature you used on behalf of Ethan was fraudulent." Madison's breath hitched. For a moment, she looked at Ethan as if expecting him to defend her, to jump in and say this was all a mistake. But he didn't move. Instead, he reached into his own folder and slid forward a printed sheet, an analysis of the forged signature. The buyers exchanged whispers. The title agent's face drained of color. Madison's hands began to tremble. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. Ethan told me I could do this. He said he trusted me." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Stop lying," he whispered. Madison's panic surged like a wave. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair back, insisting she was pregnant and overwhelmed, begging everyone to understand she just wanted what was best for their family. Her words fell apart as quickly as they came. One of the investigators stepped forward and calmly placed a small evidence bag on the table, the receipt for tampons found in her purse. The room went silent. Madison stared at the bag, mouth open, unable to form a single word. At that moment, the officers approached her. "Madison Carter," one said softly, "you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and attempted sale of property you do not own." She backed away, shaking her head violently, insisting it wasn't real, that this couldn't be happening. But the handcuffs clicked around her wrists with a cold finality. Her carefully crafted image shattered. Her perfect makeup streaked as tears spilled down her cheeks. She screamed Ethan's name, pleading, accusing, bargaining, but none of it mattered. The buyers left in stunned silence. The title agent closed the file slowly, still in disbelief. And Ethan watched the woman he once loved being escorted out of the room, realizing that this moment of truth was both an ending and a beginning. The days following Madison's arrest felt strangely quiet, as if the entire world had taken a breath and held it. Ethan found himself moving through each morning in slow motion, replaying the scene at the closing table over and over, trying to understand how the woman he married had turned into someone capable of so much deceit. Madison, meanwhile, was forced to confront the reality she had spent months ignoring. Her court hearings began almost immediately. She was charged with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and providing false statements to a notary, each carrying serious consequences. Her lawyer attempted to paint her as stressed, overwhelmed, and misguided rather than malicious, but the evidence said otherwise. Every forged signature, every falsified document, every lie she had told in an attempt to sell a house she didn't own. The judge spared her jail time, but delivered a heavy sentence. Madison received probation under strict supervision, mandatory counseling, community service, and a financial penalty large enough to bury any hope of funding her imaginary wellness empire. She was ordered to repay the buyers for the disruption and reimburse the legal fees incurred. For someone who had dreamed of easy money, the weight of the consequences crushed her. But the legal punishment was nothing compared to what awaited her outside the courtroom. Her parents were horrified, unable to comprehend how their daughter had become entangled in criminal charges. Her friends began avoiding her calls, distancing themselves from the growing scandal. News of her arrest spread quickly through their social circles, fueled by whispers and half-truths that painted her as reckless, greedy, and dishonest. But the deepest cut came when Ethan discovered the final betrayal. Buried within Madison's email records, investigators found messages between her and Blake, a brand consultant she had hired in the early days of her business. The messages weren't just professional. They were intimate, flirtatious, and filled with promises. Blake had encouraged her to pursue the sale aggressively, assuring her that once the money arrived, they could start fresh together. He planned to help her reinvest the funds, code for siphoning as much as he could. Madison had not only lied, she had cheated. And she had conspired with someone who cared even less about her than she cared about Ethan. When Ethan read the emails, something inside him finally snapped free. The last thread of attachment dissolved. Any lingering guilt or confusion turned into clarity. Their marriage was over. Madison tried reaching out, calling from blocked numbers and sending frantic emails begging him to listen, to understand, to forgive. But Ethan didn't respond. He had nothing left to give her. Divorce papers were filed quickly, uncontested. Madison moved in with her sister temporarily, trying to rebuild a life from the ruins she created. Ethan returned to the house, his mother's house, finding comfort in its familiar walls. The place that Madison tried to steal became a symbol of survival rather than grief. He spent his evenings restoring rooms, opening windows, breathing life back into the home. The lies were gone. The chaos had ended. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt like he could finally start over. Ethan stood in the living room of his mother's house, sunlight spilling across the floorboards she once polished by hand. For the first time in a long time, the air felt still, calm, and honest. The chaos Madison created had left scars, but it also forced Ethan to rediscover who he was without her shadows. He spent his days fixing the small things around the house, repainting rooms, and restoring pieces of furniture that carried his mother's touch. The work wasn't just physical. It was healing. He also found unexpected purpose in helping his friend Lena open her small cafe, offering support the way he wished someone had supported him during his own storm. Slowly, the weight on his chest lifted. He no longer woke up dreading the next lie, the next crisis, the next manipulation. He was building a life that felt real again. In quiet moments, Ethan realized the house wasn't just a reminder of his past. It was a promise for his future. And as he stood by the window, watching leaves move gently in the yard, he understood that peace wasn't something given. It was something reclaimed.